The easier-to-understand version of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, adapted by Sarah Simpson. Chapter 3. All summer long, Gatsby had huge parties every weekend. In his blue gardens, men and girls came and went like moths among the whisperings and the champagne and the stars. Every weekend, his yellow Rolls Royce went back and forth between his house in New York constantly between 9 a.m. and 12 a.m., driving carloads of people to and from his parties. Every Monday, a crew of gardeners and housekeepers came and cleaned up the huge mess they left behind. Gatsby's parties were incredibly luxurious. The food was very fancy and expensive. He hired a full orchestra to play music. The bar served every kind of alcohol. There were hundreds of people, all there to have fun. People talked and danced and drank. They said and did things they would be embarrassed about if they were anywhere except a party at Gatsby's. The first time I went to Gatsby's, I was one of the only people who had actually been invited. A butler came to my house and gave me a handwritten invitation asking me to come over. Everyone else just showed up. None of them even knew Gatsby. They had just heard about the amazing party and showed up. I put on a white suit and went over to Gatsby's house at 7 p.m. I walked around in the crowd feeling uncomfortable. There were all sorts of people there. English nobles, rich American businessmen, people I had seen going to work in New York on the train, pretty girls, actors, actresses, famous musicians, politicians, professional athletes, and more. I asked a few people if they could tell me where to find Gatsby, but none of them knew. I was starting to get drunk when Jordan Baker came out of Gatsby's house. I was relieved to see somebody I knew. "Hello," I yelled to Jordan. "I thought I might see you here, since you live next door," Jordan said. Two girls came up to Jordan. "Sorry you didn't win the golf tournament last week," one girl said. Jordan and I sat down at the table with three men and the two girls. "Do you come to these parties often?" Jordan asked one of the girls. "I like to come," the girl said. "I never care what I do, so I always try to have a good time. The last time I was here, I tore my dress on a chair. Gatsby asked for my name and address. The next week, he sent me an expensive new evening gown." "Did you keep the dress?" Jordan asked. "Yes," said the girl. "I was going to wear it tonight, but it didn't quite fit me. It was light blue with light purple beads all over it. It cost $265. "It seems weird to me," the other girl said. "It's like Gatsby doesn't want any trouble with anybody, even over something as dumb as a torn dress." "I heard he killed a man once," the first girl said. "No, that's not true," said the second girl. "He was a German spy during the war." One of the men nodded. "I heard that too," the man said. "There was a man who grew up with him in Germany who told me." "No, that's not true," said the first girl. "He was in the American Army during the war. Look at him sometime when he doesn't think anyone is looking. He looks like he killed a man." A fancy dinner was being served, and Jordan invited me to sit with some friends of hers at another table. There were three married couples at the table along with Jordan's date. He was a college kid who kept making dirty comments to Jordan. He acted like he was going to get to sleep with her at some point in the evening. Everyone at the table was from East Egg. They acted like they were better than anyone else at the party, and they weren't acting as crazy as many of the drunk, rowdy guests. They acted like they were too good to be at a party in West Egg, but there they were. After about 30 minutes, Jordan whispered to me, "Let's leave this table. They're boring." We got up. Jordan told them we were going to go talk to Gatsby since I had never met him. Jordan's date looked annoyed. Jordan and I went into the house. We went into the library. There were hundreds of books on the shelves. There was a middle-aged man wearing big glasses sitting at the table. The man's glasses made him look like an owl. He was drunk. The man with the owl eyes waved his hands around at the books and said to me and Jordan, "Guess what? All these books in here are real. I thought they would be fake books just to make the shelves look full, but all the books are real books. Gatsby knows how to look like a smart man, but none of these books have ever been read. Look at all the pages. None of them have been cut apart so they could be read." Jordan and I just stared at the man with the owl eyes. "I've been drunk for a week now," the owl-eyed man continued. "I thought sitting in a library might sober me up." Jordan and I shook hands with the owl-eyed man and went back outside. People were dancing. There were old men dancing with pretty young girls. There were couples dancing slowly. There were single girls dancing wildly. By midnight, people were acting crazy. People were doing stunts, falling down and laughing. People were drinking champagne out of glasses as big as soup bowls. rules. I was still with Jordan Baker. I had drunk 2 big glasses of champagne. When things got quiet for a minute, the man looked at me and smiled. "I think I know you," the man said politely. "Were you in the 3rd Division of the Army in the war?" Yes, I was," I said. "I was too," the man said. "I knew I'd seen you before." The man and I talked for a few minutes about being in France during the war. He told me he just bought a new hydroplane. He was going to take it out in the morning. "Do you want to come with me, old sport?" the man asked me. "Yes, what time?" I asked. "Any time that is good for you," the man said. I was about to ask the man his name when Jordan looked at me and said, "Are you having fun now?" "Yes," I said. I turned to the man and said, "This is a weird party for me. I haven't even met the host yet. I live next door. Gatsby sent me an invitation." The man looked confused. "I'm Gatsby," he said. "I am so sorry," I said. "I thought you knew I was, old sport," Gatsby said. "I'm not a very good host." Gatsby smiled at me. He had a wonderful smile that made me feel like everything was going to be okay. I've only met 4 or 5 other people my whole life that could make me feel that way just by smiling. Gatsby wore stylish clothes. He was about 32 years old. When he spoke, he was very careful to sound smart and formal. He sounded like he was trying too hard to be sophisticated. He had tan skin. His hair was perfect and short, and it looked like it had it cut every day. A servant came out of the house to tell Gatsby that he had a phone call. Gatsby bowed to each of us and said, "If you want anything, just ask for it, old sport. I'll come back in a few minutes." As soon as Gatsby was gone, I looked at Jordan. I was surprised at Gatsby. I thought he'd be old and fat, not young, handsome, and stylish. "Who is he?" I asked Jordan. "He's just a man named Gatsby," Jordan said. "Where is he from? What job does he have?" I asked. Jordan smiled. "He told me he went to Oxford College in England. He said he was an Oxford man, but I don't believe him," Jordan said. "Why not?" I asked. "I don't know," Jordan said. "I just don't think he went there." The way Jordan sounded just then reminded me of the other girl earlier talking about how Gatsby had killed a man. I knew there was something strange about Gatsby and how he had gotten so rich. Nobody seemed to know anything about him. "It doesn't matter," Jordan said. "He gives large parties, and I like large parties. They're so intimate. At small parties, there isn't any privacy." The orchestra started to play again. I looked over and saw Gatsby standing on the steps to his house. He was looking at all the people who had come to his party. They were drunk and wild, but Gatsby was totally sober and quiet. All the guests were starting to partner up, but Gatsby was alone. Gatsby's servant startled me. "Miss Baker," the servant said to Jordan, "please excuse me, but Mr. Gatsby would like to talk to you alone." "With me?" Jordan said in surprise. "Yes, madam," the servant said. Jordan went inside the house with the servant. I was alone, and it was almost 2 a.m. I went inside Gatsby's house. A big room was full of people. They were at the point of the night of partying where everyone was tired and starting to get cranky. A famous singer was singing. She was so drunk that she felt like everything was sad, so she was crying as she sang. Her eye makeup was running all over her face. Somebody made a joke that the messy eye makeup looked like music notes and that she should sing them. She got so upset that she stopped singing and sat down in a chair. Within a minute, she was passed out. Husbands and wives were fighting. Nobody was having fun anymore. It was time for everyone to go home. The fun was over, but nobody wanted to leave. I was waiting for Jordan. Finally, Jordan and Gatsby came out of the room. They shook hands. Gatsby went back into the room. Jordan came over to me. "I just heard the most amazing thing," Jordan whispered. "What is it?" I asked. "It was amazing, but I promised Gatsby I wouldn't tell," Jordan said. "Nick, come see me. My number's in the phone book." Jordan ran off to leave. I was embarrassed that I had stayed at Gatsby's house so late. I told Gatsby that I had looked for him earlier that night. I told him I was sorry I didn't know who he was when we talked before. "It's fine, old sport," Gatsby said. "Don't worry about it. Don't forget, we're going out in my new hydroplane tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. The butler came and tapped Gatsby on the shoulder. He had another phone call to take. This one was from Philadelphia. "Good night, old sport," Gatsby said to me, smiling his wonderful smile. "Good night," I said. As I walked back to my house, I saw that something had happened on the road. There had been a car accident. Gatsby's new yellow car was in the ditch. One wheel was torn off. A drunk man stood near the broken car. "It went in the ditch," the drunk man said. I recognized the man. It was the man with the owl eyes from the library. I went over to him. "How did it happen?" I asked. The Allied man shrugged his shoulders. I don't know anything about cars, he said. But how did you wreck the car, I asked. I don't know anything about driving, the Allied man said. If you're a bad driver, you shouldn't be driving, I said. I wasn't even paying attention, so it's not my fault, the Allied man said. Were you trying to kill yourself, I asked. You're a bad driver and not even paying attention. You don't understand, the Allied man said. I wasn't the one driving the car. There's another man in the car. He was the one driving. Everyone got very quiet. Someone opened the door to the car. We were all scared that the man inside would be dead. After a minute, a very pale, very drunk man got out of the car. He was so drunk he could barely even stand up. What's the matter? The drunk driver asked. Did we run out of gas? Someone pointed to the torn-off wheel. At first, I didn't even notice the car had stopped, the drunk driver said. Let's just try to back out of the ditch. You can't, someone said. The wheel is torn off. The drunk driver paused for a minute. It won't hurt to try, he said. I started to walk home. I looked back and saw Gatsby standing on the steps of his empty house. He had one hand up, waving goodbye to all his rude, drunk guests in a very formal way. As I read back over what I wrote about that summer, I know I'm making it sound like all I did was go to parties. That's not true. I mostly worked, but the parties are what I remember most, so that's what I wrote about. When I first got to New York, I'd been nervous. I didn't like it. But after a couple of months, I got used to the noise and the excitement of the city. I started to love New York. For a while, I didn't see Jordan Baker. At first, I liked going places with her. She was a golf champion and everyone knew who she was. I felt important by association. After a while, my feelings for her changed. I wasn't exactly in love with her, but I liked spending time with her. I knew that her snobbish behavior was all an act, and I wanted to know more about the real Jordan. In time, I figured out who the real Jordan really was. One day we went to a party. She borrowed someone's convertible and forgot to put the top back up. It rained and the inside of the car was ruined. Jordan lied and said she had put the top up. That reminded me of why I knew Jordan's name the first time I had met her at Daisy's house. There was a story in all the newspapers about Jordan's first golf tournament. She had been accused of cheating. A caddy said he saw her move her ball so she'd have a better shot. Lots of people were very upset, but eventually people stopped talking about what had happened. The caddy took back what he said, and someone else who saw her move the ball said he wasn't sure she did it. I'm guessing her rich family paid them off so she wouldn't embarrass them. Jordan Baker didn't date smart men. She liked stupid men because they wouldn't call her out for lying. A stupid man would never think that a rich, beautiful woman would ever lie. She was incurably dishonest. I didn't care that Jordan was a liar. A man doesn't really care if a woman lies. I knew the truth, but I pretended not to see it. One day, when Jordan was driving, she almost hit a workman with her car. You're a bad driver, I told her. You need to be more careful or not drive at all. I am careful, she said. No, you're not, I said. Well, other people are, Jordan said, laughing. Other people will get out of the way when I'm driving badly. It takes two people to make an accident. What if you met somebody just as careless as you are, I asked. I hope that never happens, Jordan said. I hate careless people. That's why I like you, Nick. Just like that, something changed in our relationship. For a minute, I thought I loved Jordan Baker, but I knew I couldn't get involved with her until I ended things with that girl back home everyone thought I was engaged to. I'd been writing the girl letters every week and signing them Love Nick. I knew I was leading her on and needed to break up with her. Everybody thinks that they are a good person. Here's one thing I can say for myself. I am one of the few honest people that I have ever known.